What's up everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna be going over my car ownership over the last 15 years. Now I am 31 years old, so 15 years ago, I got my driver's license and obviously bought my first car. And every single car actually I have ever owned, you guys have seen on our YouTube channel. So it's kind of crazy to be able to look back half my life ago and see a little bit of the first videos on my first car and then a lot more on all the other cars. So with that said, let's get right into it with car number one, which was my Scion TC. So I bought a 2007 Scion TC, black cherry paint job, black interior. It was the 5-speed manual. I really wanted a manual as my first car. So I found the car on Craigslist actually, which these days it would be Marketplace, but back then Craigslist was where you go to look at used stuff. My dad and I went out and checked it out. He drove it around with me in the passenger seat, and then we got to a parking lot, and then I finally drove it for the first time. I had never driven a manual transmission car before until that parking lot, and I drove it fine. Obviously, my dirt bike experience paid off to where, you know, a manual car was no different than a manual dirt bike. But the TC was a fun little first car, especially being a hatchback. I could put my bike in the back, I could do things with it. It was really practical. The manual made it a lot more fun than a basic automatic. You know, I put an exhaust and an intake on it, and it ended up being a really fun first car. And last year, almost to the day, I drove the Lambo back to my hometown, and I even recreated one of my original videos with the Scion TC. But that was a great first car and not a bad way to kick it off. So car number two would be my 2011 Hyundai Genesis Coupe. So I traded in the TC at CarMax for the Genesis Coupe. It was a 2-liter turbo. I think it had like 10,000 miles on it or so, but it had paddle shifters. And for me, well, back then, you know, manuals were definitely considered the cool transmissions at the time. These days, a lot of automatics, a lot of people seem to like better than manuals. But back then, you know, manuals were cooler, automatics were kind of lame for sports cars. I wanted the paddles because I had never experienced paddle shifters. So to me, that was actually new and exciting to get, you know, paddle shifters. But with the Genesis, that was basically my car throughout college. I owned it for about 4.5 years, and I had a lot of fun with it. I did a lot of YouTube videos. That was the car that I first ever turned the camera around on me and actually filmed me like reviewing a car and modifying a car. So that car was pretty big deal for me at the time. I did the intake, the exhaust, the blow-off valve, window tints. I think I sold it with like almost 40,000 miles on it or so in 4.5 years. Did some autocrosses with it, a couple mountain road trips with it, and honestly, it was really fun. But that was a great car for the time. Definitely had no complaints with it. So number three on the list leads us to my 2012 Nissan 370Z. So I bought that about 6 months after I graduated college. At that time, I had just got into my first apartment after college. I had a full-time job. Like I was kind of starting my real life after the college days. That was my first real sports car, I would say. I only owned that car for about 6 months. I have no clue how many miles I put on it. I think I bought it with 22,000 miles. Maybe it had 25 when I sold, I have no clue. But I just did a quick little axle bike exhaust and some intake pipes and window tint. Obviously didn't own it that long, because after about 6 months, one of my coworkers, previous customers who bought a Nissan from him years prior, well, he came in with his 2016 Nismo 370Z. And after driving it just for fun with the owner who was consigning it with our dealership at the time, which is where I worked, I told myself I have got to see if I can afford to buy this. That was probably my first like, wow kind of car. It had the bucket seats. Its MSRP was nearly 50 grand. So to be able to buy a car that 8 months prior was almost $50,000 was pretty insane, you know, a year after college. The Nismo, I did a lot of videos with. I did wheels on it. I did coilovers, intake, exhaust. I did a lot of driving with that car. I mean, I had an absolute blast. That was a huge, huge car on our YouTube channel. It became so popular. Had no complaints with it. I sold it for a little bit less than I paid after about a year of ownership. These days, that car is still worth about what I sold it for. So I could have kept it, I don't know, 8 years later or something, and it still would have been worth what I paid. But the Nismo Z was awesome. Great, great experience with both of the Zs. The red one I kind of forget about short term, but the Nismo was an awesome, awesome car. So for car number four, we get into my first dream car. Now, these days, especially on the internet with YouTube, I think the word dream car is thrown out way too often. You cannot have a dream car that came out last year. In my opinion, a dream car is something that you have thought about for years and years, more like decades and decades. So the R35 Nissan GTR came out, I think we first saw it in like 2007. Of course, I already knew the R34 from watching Fast and Furious growing up. So the Skyline, the GTR, was a dream car since I was probably 10 years old. So when I saw it come out in 07-ish, seeing that it was gonna be like Corvette money with Bugatti acceleration, that blew my mind. And then years later, as I got more into cars and understood what this car was capable of, it seemed like an amazing car. They looked reliable, fast, they were Nissan, so it's easy to work on, and they were practical. So beginning of 2018, I bought my 2014 R35 GTR. It had 24,000 miles on it. It was a one-owner car from a Nissan dealer, so I was really confident it'd probably be a good car to buy. I traded the Nismo Z for it, so the same car hauler basically hauled the Z to the Nissan dealership. So when that car came, that was insane. I had just turned 24 years old, and I was able to buy literally one of my dream cars. That was a dream come true. And keep in mind, throughout this video, I was the kid growing up who had the off-brand clothes, the clearance clothes, the packed lunches. I didn't even have a smartphone until halfway through college. I was the kid who had the minimalistic stuff. And when I made a video with the GTR about how I could afford it at a young age, I said the decisions you make today will affect you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. And that is a reality of the cars you've seen. It's those little decisions year after year, decade after decade. Like literally even today, this shirt was like $5 on clearance. My shoes were 20 bucks from Costco. I pack a lunch literally every day still. My wife and I make dinner together every single day. You just live simple and you can do a lot of stuff. So GTR came into play. That car was so much fun to own, to modify, to film. I did bolt-ons, I did the downpipes, injectors, fuel pumps, flex fuel, springs, nice wheels. I did a lot of customization to it. Made that car like 700 horsepower. Owned that car for 5.5 years, sold it with about 50,000 miles. It was nothing but smiles. And literally the content I made led me to my wife, which is kind of mind-blowing. She's a car enthusiast. She saw my videos, liked our photos on Instagram, and I messaged her out of the blue one day. And 5 years later, we've been married for many years. We have a kid. I mean, how did a car lead me to that? No clue. Also, how did a car lead me to running my own business with my brother? No clue. So GTR will always, always hold a big place in my heart. I loved owning it. We drove it 1,500 miles in a week to get married. We drove it from North Carolina to Michigan and back. It was in the wedding. I mean, that car was amazing. You guys loved it. It got millions of views on YouTube. I sold it for about $7,000 more than I originally paid for it due to the crazy prices that have gone up in the last couple of years. And even today, they've gone up even more. Now, during the ownership of the GTR, so we're gonna kind of go back 5 years and come back up to the present time when I sold that car, I had a lot of cars coming and going at the same time. So the first car that came when I had the GTR was my white 2020 Toyota Supra. Now that car, again, Supra and Skyline, I grew up idolizing. And when the Mark V was coming out, I was so excited because maybe I could buy a Supra and have basically the Supra and Skyline of the newest gen in my own garage. Now, once I had already made up my mind to buy this new Supra and have it alongside the GTR, I got fired from my full-time job. Now, at the time, YouTube was kind of supplementing basically rent and car payments, which was insane. I was making about the same money from my job and YouTube. I wasn't some rich guy. I'm still not some millionaire. I was making about 30 grand from my job. So not a bad salary with the two at the time. But when I got fired from my job, my income got cut in half. And of course, I had my rent and my GTR payment to still fund, as well as average expenses throughout the day and week. So I made it a goal at that point with my brother. He had just quit his job, and we put our full energy into YouTube. And within 6 months, we doubled everything on YouTube, got back up to a position where I could afford to buy the Supra. So when I bought the white Supra, that was kind of checking a lot of boxes. That was checking off being able to own the GTR and Supra together, but also kind of rewarding myself for busting my butt. It was insane how much work Mike and I put into the channel once we left our jobs, basically. I mean, it was wild. So for everyone who runs your own company, you know what I'm talking about. It is mind-blowing. We were working 7 days a week, every single day, 6 months straight, you know, from sun up to sundown, even till midnight every day, filming, editing, coming up with ideas. It was crazy. And we've been doing YouTube full time now for like 8 years. So that was a crazy time when that happened. Bought the Supra, I bought that at the end of 2019. So I was one of the first people on YouTube to actually have the car, which was really cool. Made great content. I put 10,000 miles on that car during my 2-year ownership, and it was an awesome complementary car to the GTR. GTR is a little rough around the edges, not the greatest for highway cruising, as well as city driving. The Supra kind of took that burden off the GTR, and they worked perfectly. I drove both cars a lot, and I had no complaints with the two together. It was a really perfect duo. So then we fast forward to the end of the Supra ownership, which is about when I met my wife. She moved to North Carolina with her Lexus, and at that time when she came to town, my brother and I were still renting a house together. I owned 2 cars, he owned 2 cars. we were now getting press cars for content. My wife had her car. We couldn't fit 6 cars at the rental house, so we decided I would definitely sell one of my cars and we'd keep the Lexus. And then of course I got the itch to buy a new car, and I said, what if we can sell your Lexus for whatever it's worth and that same money buy something that's more fun? And that's what we did. Now, when I worked at the car dealership years prior, I had a lot of Audis come through. We sold so many Audis, I loved them. S3s, we sold a ton and I loved them. My wife years earlier had an A3 for a year. And she actually kind of does the same thing I do with cars. She bought an A3 for 15 grand, drove it for a year, put 10,000 miles on it, and sold it for what she paid. So she always liked the Audis as well. And then I found the Riviera Blue Audi S3 that we bought. That was our first car that we bought together. We bought that and sold a Lexus. It was about the same price point. So now we had the GTR alongside the Audi S3. At that time, we also ordered the Audi RS3. Knowing that the RS3 was gonna take like 2 years to get, that's why we also figured S3 would be a safe option. So we ordered the RS3 while we owned the S3. So we'll get to the RS3 in a second. But while we owned the S3 and the GTR, I then, of course, once again, got the itch to buy another car. And then my friend at Toyota calls me up and says, hey, we got a manual Supra in. The buyer backed out. Do you know anybody who wants to buy it? Of course, I asked him, is there any markup, anything like that? Because people always thought, you know, cars like that would have a markup. He's like, nope, no markup. Just if you know anybody, let me know. Well, the next day I was that somebody. So I bought the black manual transmission 2023 Toyota Supra. So we had the S3, the manual Supra, and the GTR together. So we were back to having 3 cars now. We were very settled in our home. Supra was great, had a lot of fun with that car. The manual was great. I did all the bolt-ons. I wrapped that car. That was the first car I ever did a full color change wrap on. I did do a camo wrap on my GTR, which was piece by piece, but a full wrap on the Supra was fun. I did carbon fiber stuff, a set or 2 of wheels on it, had a lot of fun with that. That also I used to kind of launch our website. So we have a website linked down below where you can order car parts from us for all the cars you've seen on our channel. And that black Supra really helped take that off. Now I owned that car for about a year, and then I decided, I think I need to sell the GTR because I'm ready to buy, obviously, the Lamborghini. So I sold the GTR after 5.5 years. So now we have the S3 and the Supra. So from there, I then found the Lamborghini Gallardo, which replaced the GTR. This was my all-time childhood dream car. And remember the word dream car, how people throw it out too much? I somehow have a home video of me opening the model car that I still have today. It's been, at this point, 20 years ago, getting a 2004 Gallardo for Christmas when I was about 11 years old. I don't know how that video existed. I didn't even know that video existed until the day I bought this car. I texted my mom and said, hey, can you look back at Christmas home videos around 2004? Any chance you can see that model car? And she sends me that clip, which literally brought a tear to my eye knowing that that video existed. But we moved around a lot growing up, and I've always kept that model car on display for 20 years. It's been in every rental house, rental apartment, college apartment. It's been in my home office now. That car means a lot to me, and the fact that 18 years later I turned it into a reality and bought this 2014 LP550 is insane. And once again, living simple is why this car. I own this car outright. I had a loan for a year on it. It's been nothing crazy to own, quite honestly, even with everything that entails owning a Lamborghini. But this is a dream come true. My wife and I bought it in New York. We drove it 11 hours home. We've driven 8,000 miles in this car already. Road trips, car shows, mountain drives. It is a dream to drive. I love it. While yes, it's not the most up-to-date car, there are more cars out there with dual clutches, fancy tech. The raw aspects of this car is insane. I love it. I've done the Superleggera wing, the Superleggera tips, a Balboni stripe, and just enjoy it. So ironically enough, 2 weeks after buying the Lamborghini is when our RS3 got delivered. So literally we bought the Lamborghini and then the RS3 in the same month. That November was a crazy expensive month, to say the least. We listed the S3. It sold in a day due to the fact that not many S3s were ever painted in Riviera blue. But RS3 comes, we go pick it up, and that's my wife's car. She loves it. We still own that car today. I've done the basic bolt-ons to it. That's the mom car, the family car, and we really, really like it quite a lot. Moving on from that, at that point we had RS3, Lambo, black Supra. That's when I decided I'm not driving the Supra much. So I know we're going a little back and forth, but I guess the GTR to Lambo are the main cars, and then we've had my extra cars and my wife's cars on the second line of that. So timelines are hopefully not too confusing. But the Supra wasn't getting driven much after I bought the Lamborghini. And the second year I owned the Supra, I put like less than 500 miles on it. obviously it doesn't compete with this car. And being this is my dream car, this is my baby, if I want to go have fun, I'm taking this car 99% of the time. The only time I would choose to drive the Supra was if I wanted to have fun and it was maybe raining out. I'm not going to drive this car in the rain. So I decided, let me trade in the Supra for a better complementary car to the Lambo. The Supra and GTR were fantastic together. They were the perfect duo. Where the GTR had flaws, the Supra worked out perfectly. Where the Supra had some flaws, the GTR was perfect. So those were great together. Supra and this car, they almost competed with each other. They just didn't make any sense. So I traded the Supra in for an FL5 Honda Civic Type R. Never thought I'd buy another front-wheel drive car after my TC, but I'd always see the FL5s at car shows months leading up to buying it, and I just thought they were really cool looking. They reminded me of our RS3, but cheaper and maybe a little more sporty for just ripping through the gears, having fun with it in a toned down car that isn't as expensive. And one pops up at my local dealer for honestly way too little money. They should have been going for 48 grand. I found it for 45 grand with 2,000 miles. So I made the trade and they gave me a really good deal on my car. So I broke even owning the manual Supra for 2 years, and I bought the FL5 for honestly a couple grand less than it should have sold for. Now the FL5 I owned for about a year, and honestly, I drove it quite a bit. I still put over 3,000 miles on it, especially during the winter time when I didn't want to drive this in kind of crappier weather, cold, like extra cold climates. You know, I did a lot of mountain trips with it, even some events with it. It was insanely practical. I could put stuff that I was doing, you know, house projects in the back. So I had a lot of fun using it for practical things. It was a blast to drive. I never in a million years thought I would have so much fun owning that car, but it was so much fun. You could just drive it like you stole it and you just didn't have to worry about it. So I just loved it. It was worry-free fun. Another reason I kind of bought it was we were about to start a family, and I was thinking it's probably a good idea to have a second like practical dad car style thing. I never used it for the car seat. So I realized I'm not using it for the dad car stuff. I kind of had my fun with it and I just didn't have anywhere else to go with it. I didn't want to tune it. I didn't really want to go too crazy modifying it because I felt like it was so perfect the way it was. Any more power would kind of ruin it. So I don't know, just kind of lost the luster on that car, I guess. And it just kind of became a car sitting in the background. Sold it for about what I paid. So basically broke even on it. So that basically covers all the cars I've ever owned for the last 15 years, along with my wife's Lexus and then the S3 and RS3. Technically, I guess the Lexus would also be considered my ownership, given we were married when we still own that. And once you're married, obviously everything is all one. But awesome cars, not gonna lie. If you talked to me 15 years ago to say that all these cars would be coming in the next 15 years, again, kind of a dream come true, but the simple lifestyle is why this stuff has been a reality. That's basically it. 15 years of cars that I've owned. It has been a fun journey with all of them. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, stay tuned for plenty more content to come. For all of you enthusiasts who probably buy way too many cars than we should, comment below what are the cars that you've owned in the time it's been since you had your license. I'll see you guys in the next video.